the tape for this, our main event of the evening. We introduce the champion, Chris, the West Side Strangler Brennan. Let's get it on!
Can we go? Let's do it. What's up, guys? We're back to talk about UFC Paris and the two fights, the co-main and the main that we talked about last week, and kind of go over the no-hitter, right? We're 2 for 2 on those.
Well, and not only were you 2 for 2, but you kind of called them both exactly how they're going to go. And we'll go through with each one of them, but you nailed the predictions exactly what was going to happen.
There are some fights, I think, in the sport that there's only so many ways they can go with the ways that the guys fight.
Yeah.
And obviously we'll get to them when we do, but they played out exactly how I thought they would and could play out, I guess.
First fight, then we'll jump right into it. Whitaker-Vettori goes 3 rounds, unanimous decision, exactly what you said. One judge scored at 30-27. I believe the other two got at 29-28.
Yeah.
The first round, that was the first question I wanted to ask you. When I got finished watching round 1, I'm like, man, I have no idea how I would score this. How did you score?
I gave it to Whitaker, but I gave it to him just because I could tell he was laying out the second and the third round.
Okay.
He was feeling everything out. He was timing everything.
Yeah.
He was getting his range down, and he was setting things up. He was setting traps. And if you watched the second round, that's when all of a sudden he started landing clean shots.
That right
real
hand,
clean shots. Yeah.
that overhand right was just connecting.
Money. Yeah, it was money. And that's what he was setting up in the first round. So I gave that to him just because Marvin Vettori didn't do a whole lot.
Yep.
You know, it was a close fight looking at it, but if you're watching it to see, you know, what's actually taking place, that's what I had taking place. I had him win in the first round.
It's interesting if you look at the significant strikes in the first round. Whitaker was 22 versus 14 for Vettori. So I know it's not always about volume. It's going to be about the results of that volume.
Right.
But I think at that point when they're so close and you got to start splitting hairs, maybe significant strikes is what you go to at that point.
Sure. And I, as they were going to the judges, I said, and I wish I had it on the podcast live, I was like, one judge is going to give the first round to Vettori. The other two are going to give, you know, all 3 rounds to Whitaker, and they did.
So in the second round, we talked about it a little bit, but that's when, and I've never heard the term, I heard Bobby Knuckles twice. I didn't know if that's a nickname. It's a great nickname, by the way. I love that.
I believe that Adesanya is who started that, calling him that.
That's a great nickname. I love
hilarious.
it. That's when that right hand started landing, and he also started getting the kicks going. And it seemed like that was where Whitaker just started working his right, Vettori's left.
Yeah.
And it just felt like the left side of Vettori was open from the second round on. Open is a little bit, that may not be fair, but that's where he was connecting.
It was pretty open, and you could see there was one punch. I forget if it was early or middle of the second round, but there was one right hand that landed. He landed multiple right hands, but there was one right hand that landed that changed the fight for Vettori. Mm-hmm. You could see it as soon as it landed, and he kind of did like a shake off,
just like,
and
cool.
I was like, yeah. So now he's on the receiving end, and it's going to be hard to turn that around, you know, and become offensive again.
Yep.
And from that point on, he was a one-punch guy. He'd throw one. You know, he wasn't throwing more than one punch after that. And when he was getting countered with that straight right. He ate a clean head kick in the third round.
Yes, he did.
No hands. Like, there was no hands in between. Just ate a straight head kick. He ate one that was with the arm, but it was still, you know, plenty to rock him.
Yeah.
But the one that he has a solid chin. He ate the other one straight to the head.
Talk about when you've got your hand up here and you're blocking a head kick that comes in. Obviously, your arm is going to eat some of that.
Sure.
What is the difference between having your hands up and blocking that? And do you truly block a head kick at that level, or is it just reducing the damage versus that one that you talked about that was just clean?
Yeah, so I definitely feel like when you check a head kick, The hand should be on the ear.
Yep.
The elbow should be tucked to the body.
Okay.
And the other hand should be here.
Okay.
Okay. There are some that teach to come here just like you would Thai pads.
Yeah.
I don't want to take them across my forearms. That's bone to bone on their shin.
Yep.
When you turn the arm this way, you're going to catch the muscle of the arm.
Okay.
You don't want your hand away from your head or it's going to get blasted into your head.
Right.
You know, so your elbow's stuck to the body in case it's coming low and not high, and you can kind of come here and eat it to the body.
Yeah.
But this hand alone, you want to lean into it, not
Yep.
away, so it
Step
doesn't knock
into
you
it.
away.
Yep.
And then this hand is going to be shin. This hand's going to be, you know, the bottom of the shin foot area, and you want to catch it here. If you're here, it can come short and still catch you in the face.
Sure.
So you want that hand there in front. So let me move real quick, but it would be basically here and here, tight to the body. Boom, boom, boom,
And
check it.
And
hand to the ear.
if you're effective in that, does it reduce significantly?
Absolutely.
Okay.
When I'm teaching, I'll let someone kick a little harder, kick a little harder, throw a little harder, and let them kick so people in the class can see
Okay.
that you can actually eat that if you check it correctly.
Got it.
And you don't want this hand here, because if it's here, it's still coming to the side of your head. It's still going to come to the
Gotcha.
ear.
Yep.
You know, the foot's going to wrap around and catch your head. This is going to cover your ear. This is going to cover your face.
Yep.
Be right there.
Okay.
So that's
Okay.
my
I love it.
lesson for the day.
No, that's great.
$150, please. Just cash app it.
He takes Venmo, by the way. No, and that's good, because when you're watching some of those head kicks, when they get their arms up like that, it sounds loud and it looks big. But if it's blocked correctly, from what I'm hearing, and from what I've the little experience I have in Muay Thai, if you block it right, it can reduce it.
Absolutely.
But I've just wondered, I've never been kicked at the level that these guys are throwing.
You can't take them all night,
Sure.
right? But you can
Okay.
definitely. It's gonna help you a lot. If you go back years, Dwayne Ludwig and Jens Pulver, I believe it was Dwayne and Jens. Jens had a nasty straight left hand, I think, because he's southpaw. They went out and chopped his arm apart at the beginning of the fight, okay, just so that his arm would start to drop. Then they went to the head and knocked him out.
Okay.
But they beat the crap out of his arm to the body,
Yeah.
to the head, just so he would check it a lot. And
Yeah.
the next round, you know, his hand was down and he was able to land there.
Round 3, Vettori went for what I called a half-hearted takedown. He tried to go. It didn't seem like it was with a lot of intensity. Whitaker handled it without much effort,
Yeah.
and then Whitaker flipped it, and he did a takedown. It was a beautiful
Yeah,
double leg.
great timing.
And the timing was great, and again, it didn't. Both takedowns didn't look like there was a lot of effort, but for two completely different reasons.
Setup.
The Vettori one, it just kind of looks like he was half-hearted there. The Whitaker one was so smooth and so easy that it looked like he didn't even have to try very hard, and boom, he flipped him quick.
The setup is everything on a takedown. If you just shoot a naked takedown with no setup, the guy has all of this time of watching you to get to set up the sprawl. Whitaker waited for Vettori to throw.
Yep.
His hands were literally over him while he level changed under him.
Yep.
And once you're here, it's
Yeah,
so easy to
you're
get
just
that
wide
dump, and
open.
he just ran him right over from
Yep.
there.
The other thing I noticed, Whitaker's fight IQ in the third round, he had Vettori on a knee, put his hand on top of his head. Jason came in real quick, the ref, and was like, knee down.
Yeah.
And he's like, cool, uppercut.
Huge
Just
uppercut.
huge uppercut. Came in underneath.
Marvin Vettori has a solid chin. Like,
Yeah.
there's no question about his chin. He ate, again, the head kick, the right hands, and that uppercut right there was kind of a hook uppercut.
Yeah.
Hard punch.
Oh, yeah.
Hard
just
punch.
clean.
Yeah.
Nothing blocking it
And
as
stood
well.
right up.
And I liked. I mean, you've seen knee down a lot. I've never seen anybody be like, "Cool, knee down. I'm going to hit you with my hands because that's still
Right,
legal." Like,
right.
I love that in the moment he was doing that math
Yeah.
and was like, "Cool, I can do this." And then the execution, he bent down, got up underneath it, and the lift that he got on that uppercut was clean, man.
Brought him back to his feet.
It was amazing. I'm just like, oh, that was beautiful.
Yeah.
So again, I went exactly as you called it. Is there anything that I missed that you wanted to talk about in that fight?
No, I mean, here we are again with where does Whitaker go?
Yeah.
And you know, he's got Adesanya, who's the champ. He's got the guy I always forget his name just because
it looks like Pereira, but
yes.
I know, but that's
Alex
not how.
Pereira
But pronounced differently, I think.
is going to fight him, and it is lined up.
I was
It
just
is,
gonna say
yeah.
I wanted to correct that before we hit record. I went and looked, and that fight is in November, I believe. It's
Yeah, that's not too
281, I
far
believe.
off, and if Adesanya is smart, he wrestles him. He has enough wrestling and jiu-jitsu to be able to beat a guy who's just started the sport.
Yeah.
And hopefully he's smart enough to do that. If he stands with him, I guess we'll see what happens. It's 4-ounce gloves, and we'll see how it goes. But it would suck for Adesanya to lose the belt to a guy with 6 fights that just came in, and has already knocked you out in kickboxing. Because I think that guy, like I said, if that guy wins, Whitaker runs him over. Whitaker wrestles him and beats him up all day long.
Do you feel like Adesanya, with the mentality and the mindset that he has, is he going to want to go in there and be like, you've knocked me out twice, I'm going to show you I'm the better striker? Could you see the hubris come in on that and be like,
that would be 100% ego, right? He might do it because of his ego,
right?
But if he wants to retain the belt and he wants to secure a championship, and make the money and get rid of that guy,
right?
That's the way to do it.
Smart fights on the ground.
So we'll see what his fight IQ is, but and I don't know why. Like, if someone knocks me out twice, clean, I'm not going to go out and be like, well, now we're in a sport where I'm allowed to take him down. But I think I'm going to give it a shot again on the feet with 3 times smaller gloves.
Yeah. That's
So
a good call. That's a
we'll
good
see.
call. I'm excited to see that. That's going to be a great fight. We've got UFC 280 is going to be legit. I know we're going to talk a little bit more about what's coming up with Diaz and Hamzat. But yeah, we've got a lot of good fights coming up.
Yeah.
Moving on to Gon and Tuivasa. Again, you kind of called this. You did not see Tuivasa knocking out Gon, but I think he was within. He was so close. And after the fight, Cyril said, "I blacked out. He knocked me out."
Yeah. So I laid it out again. This is the one I kind of laid out even more than the other one was. I was pretty sure. So Gon is the better striker, right? He's the better fighter.
Yeah.
And Tuivasa has that one punch power. So at any point in time, he could knock out Cyril Gane. But if the fight goes, the distance or even less, it is Cyril Gane who has the better striking, who's going to pick him apart, who's going to land, and it was a pretty close first round.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was back and forth, I believe. And then he started with the teep kick to the belly. And as soon as he started beating up his stomach, that's when, how do you condition a stomach like that?
Well, right? Especially with his stomach.
That's what I'm saying. How do you condition a stomach like that? I don't know. And I thought he fought a great fight, Tuivasa. I thought he fought a good fight. He did well trying to close the distance to land his power. He landed a few times, but Cyril Gane is just smooth, man. He is so smooth. And his footwork, and speed, it played out. He got sat on his butt, right?
Second round, dropped, straight drop.
He hit his butt, and as he was getting up, got hit again, got chased down, was getting hit again, and then survived it. Once he survived that, I was like, yeah, he's going to.
I feel like the fight turned because when he got sat by Ty, he responded. He grabbed him. He kind of wrapped him up a little bit, and then when they stood back up, Gane went straight to the body. And what he landed in the body, I think, is what turned the fight at that point, because that's when he really hurt Ty.
100%. When he stood up, it became a one-sided fight for Gane. He's like, okay, you got me there. And then he went,
it was the 145 mark in round 2 when things got wild. And from 145, this was, I was looking at the stats.
Did it end on the third or the fourth?
It ended at the very end of the third. So the stats are really interesting. In round 1, it was 16-6 in favor of Gane for significant strikes. So pretty close in round 1. Round 2, it was 41-15 in favor of Gane. And then in round 3, it was 53-8
So
favor
go
of
back to
Gone.
round 2 real quick, just so we can explain what power means. What was the score again in the second?
41 to 15.
41 strikes of Gon's to 15 of Tuivasa's.
Correct.
But Tuivasa dropped Gon on his butt.
Yep.
Beat him up while he was getting up, was throwing punches, and still was outstruck 41 to 15.
Unreal.
Crazy.
Unreal.
And didn't get hurt. He didn't get hurt in that round.
And after the fight,
I guess maybe he did after the 145 round.
yeah, after that, yeah.
Yeah.
But after the fight, Gon could have gone out to dinner. Nobody would have known what he had just done.
100%.
You know, he looked pretty good.
Yeah.
And he got hit clean. Talk to me about, so they talked a little bit about snap kicks versus teeps. Is that the same thing, or is that a different kick?
So I don't know if you can see my leg, but a teep, is going to be hip extended.
Yep.
With
okay.
the ball of your foot.
Okay.
Snap kick is pop.
Okay.
Pop.
Okay.
And that's what Connor does to the belly really well. That's what Cyril Gahn was doing to his belly really well.
Okay.
They're a lot harder to catch.
Because they're so much faster.
Yeah, they're going to pop and be back. They're not bang, they're not that push.
Okay.
And that snap to the stomach. It's the same thing, actually. Lucas, in his 3 fights ago, he threw at the bell of the 3rd round and caught the guy in the chin. Still at that point hadn't trained
Is that
a day of kicking in his life.
Michael Chandler style?
Yes, but and it would have knocked the guy clean unconscious, but he kicked with the top of the foot and hit the chin.
He caught up instead of getting with the ball.
And had it been with the ball the way it was, man, it was thrown with a lot of power. It snap kicked him with the top of the foot, ended up hurting his foot for like 3 months. I think it was still hurting his next fight. But we went over it, since then, and man, it's a weapon. It's a nasty weapon. But that is a front snap kick that is basically to the body, to the chin. Lyoto Machida knocked out Randy Couture with it. Vitor Belfort, I forget. Anderson Silva knocked out Vitor Belfort with it.
And then recently,
and then Michael Chandler murdered Tony Ferguson with it. And so, it's definitely a dangerous kick. Definitely a dangerous kick.
And that seemed, you mentioned this when I went through and I re-listened to the podcast this morning, that you talked about Cyril Gahn going to the body and working the kicks. I mean, this went almost.
I did say that before the fight, right?
You did.
Yeah.
And I mean, this went almost exactly as you scripted it. Again, this was even more so. You called 3 rounds unanimous decision for Whitaker, but this one you were even a little bit more in depth about how you thought it was going to go, and it kind of went right to script.
Yeah. Well, I thought he would use the body and the legs to stay away from the hands, to stay away from his power for a little bit.
Yep.
Until he wore him out a little bit, then start going to the head.
And the jabs, jabs by Gahn were
they're on point.
They were fantastic. A great fight. I hated to see Tuivasa lose. I got to be honest.
It was on a 5-fight win streak, which was like the longest in the division at the moment.
Yeah.
And where does he go? I'm not sure, but I dig that guy.
And I know we've talked about this a little bit, and I think you and I see things a little bit differently. But during the 2nd round, they're jawing with each other, and during the 3rd round, it looked like Gahn got a low kick, and Tui was like, "No, you got my belly," and he's showing his stomach, and he's like, "I'm good," and Gahn's like, "Come on, man, let's get into this, let's go," And it was so cool to see them have fun and laugh with each other while they're trying to take each other's head off, and it goes back to something that I felt from the beginning. The very first time I watched UFC, this was in 1995. I watched a bootleg VHS that some dude at work had, and I watched it. I'm like, that is awful. That is awful. I want nothing to do with this. And I walked out of that office and I'm like, there's no way
human cockfighting, everybody called it.
It was awful to me. Now that I'm understanding it a little bit more, and I see, number one, I understand the sport just at a very small level from the training that I've done. And then understanding and watching guys like that they're, generally speaking, there's not animosity. There's not, this isn't 2 people trying to hurt each other. This is 2 people working on their craft and trying to win. a match that is physical and mental and strategic. And yeah, the stakes are higher.
Yeah.
But I just that was a cool moment for me to watch those things. Even in round one, when the crowd was singing the French national anthem, and two was like, "Man, look, they're cheering for you. That's freaking awesome." I'm like, "Man, that is awesome."
I think, first of all, they're both good guys.
Yeah.
They're both good guys. And I think that for the most part, that's how it is in the sport. Everyone, for the most part, is cool. You get your Connors, your Colby Covingtons, your real big trash talkers.
Yeah.
That, that's their shtick, right? That's how they make their money. That's how they, that's how they sell tickets, right? And they win fights, and that's why, Connor hasn't been winning fights. And I'd imagine, he's set himself up where he's going to be still making money for his fights because he has such a following. But if you started off talking like Connor talks and we're opening up on a 5-fight losing streak, no one will be watching. You know what I mean? So you have to win. You have to perform as well. But the trash talking, I'm not a fan.
Yeah.
I thought it was funny what they were doing as well. They weren't really talking trash to each other.
No, not at all.
So I thought it was funny. But I'm not a fan of the trash talk.
The respect after the fight, when Searle pulled Tui back in there, raised his hand, he's like, "Hey, Paris, give it up for for Ty." And I don't know, man. There's things like that give me. I know it sounds cheesy, but it gives me hope that people can still be cool.
Sure.
Like, it was just, I don't know, it was just a good moment for me. It was an awesome fight.
Not to rain on your parade, but neither one of them were American.
That's right.
So hopefully there is hope.
That's right. That's a good call. You suck.
Moving on.
Yeah. Just a full fight. The total strikes were 110 to 29. Knockdowns, they each got one. I did notice something. I wanted to check on.
Go ahead.
On the very end of the fight, the combo. It was the last 10 seconds.
That's what I want to talk about too.
It was a hammer fist to the back of the head,
which is the one strike that actually did drop him. So Dana, I read, was calling for a
DQ?
Overturn of the call.
Really?
Yeah, and I guess Goddard, Mark Goddard, the ref, missed the same thing. I just read what fight it was, but he missed it in another major fight as well. To be honest, I think it was the Usman fight. I heard he landed multiple to the back of the head.
Okay.
Earlier in the fight, but yeah, he's. I read he's off main events moving forward.
Really?
Yeah.
Because he missed that hammer fist to the back of the head.
Both of those were main events.
Yeah.
And he was calling for. I think he was calling to overturn the decision of that knockout because of the strike to the back of the head. It was a clear club to the back of the head.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it wasn't like the ear in the back of the head. You're supposed to. They say Mohawk, if your hand touches the ear and the rest of the hands in the back, that's legal.
Okay.
So for me, it's great because my hand covers the whole back of their head and their ear. But that was a hammer fist straight to the back of the head, and that's the one. He was already hurt, no question. But that's the one that actually put him to the ground. So we'll see what happens with that.
I did not hear that. That's really interesting. If that fight gets overturned, what are your thoughts?
I mean, what, they run it back?
Yeah.
I guess. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I guess.
Would they call it a no contest then? Is that for both of them, and then you just do it again in 4 months when they're healed up?
Yeah, I guess so. It would have been a DQ had it been stopped right then, in the moment. But it would be a no contest now, I believe. And I guess run it back. I don't know. Tuivasa knows that he was already hurt. He's he's not a, we just talked about it. So I don't know that he may just say, no, I was, that was fine. But if not.
You've been a ref before, correct?
On accident twice.
How quickly are you processing that kind of stuff? I know they're professionals. They've been trained through it. These guys have seen a lot. This is their job. I don't want to take anything away from it, but put it in context of someone who's never done it before. How hard is it to catch that stuff in real time?
Yeah, I mean, I think It's easy to catch it if you're in the right place.
Okay.
I don't know. I'll have to rewatch the fight where he was standing when that actual strike landed. Was he at an angle behind?
I think he was.
Landed
I
and
think
got in,
he was
or-
like 8 o'clock, 7 o'clock to Gone. If you were in Gone, who's coming over, I feel like he was back into his left from Gone.
He was here.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so he should have seen it.
I think he should have.
Yeah,
Probably. Yeah.
And so if he should have seen it or did see it, because I thought he saw it as I was watching. I was like, it's the back of the head.
I mean, I saw it real
I yelled it
time, and
right
I was
away.
like, whoa.
And then nothing was said, so I was like, okay. I didn't get online afterwards. Usually, you can get online and see a million people
just
talk
exploding
about
on
it. Yeah. So I'm not sure, but if they run it back, cool. Hopefully, Tuivasa does a lot of sit-ups and tightens up his belly.
I don't know. I think he was bragging that it protected that low kick a little bit.
Yeah. Other than that, man, I don't know. Gone is the better fighter, no question.
Yeah, and even if they do
Honest to
run
God,
it
I think he's a better fighter than the champ.
Ngannou?
Yeah, I just think Ngannou has so
Yeah,
much power,
so-
and he wrestled him.
So Ngannou actually after the fight was, and I want to like Ngannou. He seems like he's a good dude. But afterwards, he's like, I'm the champ. I've already beat him. I watched him here. Nothing that I'm really that impressed with. I've already beaten him, so why would I be impressed with what he did here? And I'm like, man, I don't like that.
No, I mean, I'm impressed with people I beat. You can still watch them and be impressed by them.
Sure. We had a few more questions. You want to transition?
Yeah, let's go.
Transition to those. So we had a few more questions that came in. This was another question. We probably should have talked about this when we were talking about your relationship with your kids and whether or not Luke and Tyler would fight. Ronnie,
my cousin messaged me right away and goes, "Who won the 10-second scrap?"
Who won the?
Remember I said
Yeah, are you gonna dime them
no,
out?
it was.
I mean, you said they were young.
They were very young. Tyler was 40 pounds lighter than Lucas.
Okay.
And a head shorter. And they got into an argument before they rolled, and Luke said, "I'll just smash you," like that. And I don't know what it all started it. And then they rolled, and Lucas got up to walk away, and Tyler goes, "Well, you didn't smash me." And Luke's standing, Tyler's sitting down, so Luke sits down and shoves his head and walks away. I had it on security footage for a long time. I don't know where it is now, but Tyler, without a bat of an eyelash, Luke turned around to walk away. Tyler rocked right up to his feet.
Yeah.
Walked behind him at this angle.
Okay.
And with perfect form, wham! Straight right hand, perfect form, sucker punches Luke in the jaw. And Luke had never been punched in his face in his life.
Okay.
And he turns like this and turns around, and they're about 10 or 15 feet from the corner of the mat.
Okay.
And Luke runs machine gunning Tyler in the face until they hit the corner.
Yeah.
And then Tyler goes to hook out or slip out, and Lucas hooks him. And then I grabbed Luke basically and suplexed him. I came running from across the mat and suplexed him onto the floor and picked him up, and we all went in the back, and Tyler had started the fight. I didn't know that. I was screaming at Lucas and whatnot. So
did you go back and have to watch the footage before you had a conversation with him again?
I was a little too hot. We had the conversation right then.
Yeah.
And then I found out as the conversation was happening that Tyler punched him first.
Okay.
And then I was mad that I was as mad at Luke. And then 2 hours later, they were both sitting on the couch playing video games together the rest of the night, and they were chill. Now they're, like I said, and I got some funny messages for this too, but they're the smart Nick and Nate.
Oh, so I debated whether or not to make a reel on that because I knew that, but it was you couldn't not. That was
you
just
had
gold.
to, had to.
That was gold.
It's true.
So, with talking about your kids, and actually this question parlays great into the story. Ronnie says, I saw your post about the question you asked. One question I've always wanted to ask is how you balance the relationship between father and son as his coach in MMA without getting emotional during the fights. We've talked, you do, emotions are at the surface for you. We've already talked about that. But how do you look at it and say, I know that's my son and I want to protect him, but I also want to coach him as a fighter?
Yeah. It's hard. It's hard. So me and Luke live together, right? got a pretty big house. He runs the upstairs. I don't bother him. He's 22 years old, so I don't bother him. I also, love the fact that he lives with me because it makes things so much easier training wise. We have a gym in the garage where we do all strength conditioning, and then all the rest of the stuff, we do here at the gym. But I stay out of his hair. We see each other in the kitchen. We're at the gym together all day, but I stay out of his hair. And so when it comes time to coaching, I'm just coaching, and he's gotten, I think maybe only 2 times literally in all of the training, gotten upset with me during training where I was telling him to do something, and he had said something back to me and was a little frustrated, but it is what it is. And other than that, we get along so well that it is first of all, for him being as good as he is, I approach everything, like I said the other day, as a question.
Yes. Yes.
Because for more than one reason. For one reason, because he responds so fast, I don't want him to do the wrong thing because I shouted it out right away. The other one is to let him feel like it was his idea.
Okay. Okay.
I'll be like, hey, what do you think about doing this? Oh yeah, I think that's good. Perfect. Try it. Instead of like, hey, do this, hey, do that. So I balance the relationship pretty well. I bring in other guys, right? I bring in Raphael for his boxing, so he coaches in there. I don't have to say a word. Mm-hmm. Every once in a while, I'll stand up and say something just because I've got more MMA experience than Raphael, and Raphael, yeah, and he'll do something different. But I approach everything pretty even all the way across as far as the coaching goes, so that it doesn't affect me and him at home. It doesn't affect me and him as a relationship, because more than anything, to me, the relationship is the most important thing. So when he's fighting, I try to think about he's in a fight. I'm coaching the guy that's in a fight, right? That's why I probably cry when the fight's over, because then it's okay.
Now it's his son.
Now my son is his fight is over.
Yeah.
And that's when I'm able to let all my emotions out for the fight week that we just had and everything, and the preparation for the last 3 months that we had and whatnot. So he hasn't been in real trouble yet, so I haven't had, too much crazy, feelings as far as having to watch him in a war. I watched him in a pretty tough fight in Vegas as an amateur. Actually, his second and third fight as amateur were pretty good scraps, and he got hit good. And I learned after the second fight that I need to calm down, even if he's in trouble, right? So I've still got to be clear in my coaching and whatnot. And Pat Miletich had messaged me and said, man, you were so chill and did such a great job coaching him during the fight. And he was close to me when I thought he was in a little bit of trouble. And I thought in my head that I was losing it. But then Pat messaged me and said that. And I was like, oh, maybe it was more in my head, that it went that way. So balancing, as Ronnie asked, Ronnie's a really good friend of mine, actually, from California. Balancing is I don't balance just the fight. I balance all of it. I balance the relationship at home, because our entire relationship, 50% of it's training.
Sure.
So I try to keep everything on an even keel all the way, and help him as much as I can everywhere I can. And to be honest, once I got sick last year, all that multiplied 1,000 times, right?
Yeah.
Like I then realized that, man, I could have not been here for the rest of this whole ride, so I kind of let him know that, and then just really take in everything that we do now every time we do it. And that's why I have so much fun traveling with him and doing everything we do together.
One of the things that I've noticed, I've heard in parenting that it's almost like an emotional bank account, and you have to make a lot of deposits in there before you can make significant withdrawals.
Agree.
And I think when you're making withdrawals as defined by me as really getting him to push, it's that extra round that he doesn't want to train for, that those extra reps that you're like, no, you need to do this. I think you do a good job of making a lot of deposits ahead of time so that when you're asking for those withdrawals and you're making him go where he doesn't want to go,
Right.
you have enough of a relationship that he understands. If you didn't have that relationship and you were pulling that out of him, I think you'd get a different result out of it.
I think that's where a lot of dads have a hard time coaching their kids. You know,
Yeah.
everyone talks about it's hard to coach your kid. You know, it's like it could be. You know, like I came up watching dads coach jiu-jitsu kids, you know, coach motocross kids. I watched a dad throw rocks at his kid as his kid went by on a motocross in a race. And I told the dad right then, I said, you throw another rock, I'm going to knock you out right here. And he looked at me and I said, you throw another rock. And I repeated it. And everyone was just like, they knew I was clearly capable, you know, at the
Right.
the motocross races with little kids.
Yeah.
And this kid's dad, as I told him, I said, you throw another rock. And the guy didn't throw another rock. And his kid was flying. He was in third place at a national championship, and he was flying. And he's throwing rocks at him, yelling, twist the freaking throttle. And I'm just like, dude, I'm going to kill this guy. And Tyler went by, was in seventh place. And I was like, yeah, come on, you know, cheering him on. Because I'm not here's a participation trophy, but I know if you're giving me your all. And he was trying. He was trying his hardest,
Yep.
you know. And so, yeah, just I never pushed these guys in that way when they were competing. You know, we talked about this before when on Luke and Tyler's podcast, if they lose a match, if someone at a high level loses a match, you don't have to go lecture them. You don't have to go bitch and complain to them. They know. They didn't try to lose, right? They're going to be the hardest one on themselves.
Yeah.
If you have a really competitive person, they're going to be the hardest ones on themselves. So I just, you know, I chill. You okay? You good? Cool. We'll talk about it a little bit, you know? And once that time comes, then we'll address what happened. You know, what went wrong, what maybe could have gone differently had we done this, et cetera, et cetera. And so I just feel like I approach it differently because a lot of dads talk about not wanting, like, you're not friends with your kids, you're their dad.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But I find that as adults a little bit different. We are friends. We're best friends, and I'm his coach, so I care about him. This all just came up again with Luke's contractual stuff, you know, with Bellator. Nobody's going to look after him more than me.
Yeah.
You know, and so it just, yeah, I feel like I've got my way of doing it, and so far it's been pretty successful.
I'm going to go back just for a second because this question's been kicking around in my mind. You said that Tyler sucker punched Luke. Is that the hardest he's ever been hit? Or do you think that was as hard as any?
No, then it was.
At that point.
He got hit by a kid as an amateur in Mexico, or a Mexican kid as an amateur in Vegas that came from Tijuana.
Yeah.
We thought he was 1-0, and speaking to the kid afterwards, he was 11-1, and ended up losing to Luke, so it was 11-2. Stud kid.
Yeah.
And he hit Lucas he hit him with two punches, and every time I show the clip to somebody, when the first one lands, they're like, oh, I'm like, no, that's not it. Then the next one comes just straight right hand across the jaw. Luke went bink and sat back like that, and I was like, he just ate that. I was like, holy smokes, you know, and you know, realized he's got a chin. He's also been hit in training.
Yeah.
You know, a couple times. I watched him get hit with a hook one time that his jaw, and he just was right back there, and I was like, man, I'm feeling those.
Who's got a better chin, Chris Brennan or Lucas Brennan?
Yeah, let's not find out. But yeah, he's Tyler did hit him clean though.
So John submitted 4 questions, and we'll kind of do, maybe we can, there's 4 of them here. We can kind of do rapid fire.
Okay.
Then we can finish off with these. We've got a few more. We're not giving up on them. We're going to continue to add these into each podcast. But John asked, and we'll go kind of rapid fire on them a little bit. Number 1, do you think you'll ever compete in a grappling tournament again?
Yes, I just need to get my lungs to a better percentage than they are.
Yeah.
But yes, I would love to. I would love to win Worlds for a 4th time. And you know, it depends where I'm at training wise. It depends where I'm at, you know, camp wise with Lucas and something like that,
and
where I
Tyler.
have time. Yeah, where I have time to prepare for it.
Okay.
but it's not important to me now.
Yeah.
So if there's something else going on, if Tyler's got a tournament that weekend, I'll rather go to his tournament than win a world championship.
The answer that you gave was the answer I think everybody was hoping to hear. I was honestly expecting you to say, probably not, but the fact that you were so quick, yes.
Yeah, I definitely would love to.
That's phenomenal. Question number 2 from John. If you could replay one thing in your career, what would it be?
Training at my gym, training at home, not seeking out better guys like I do with Luke, going to train with Bryce, going to train at Glory with James Krause, being the best guy in the room all the time. And I didn't do that because I was afraid of getting beat by guys.
That's
I did because I owned the gym.
Right, and that's what was available, right?
Yeah. I mean, I could have gone to other places, but I owned the gym. I was married with children, and I already would leave for 2 weeks to go to Big Bear just to get my mind right, to train the altitude and whatever. But I never sought out, outside training. And I think that was a big thing. That's why I think you either find a gym, that's got, great coaching and great training partners, or take yourself to one, when it comes time to prepare. But yeah, that's, I think, was my biggest, that and not wrestling.
I'm going to go add a 2A to that. Who hit you the hardest in your fights?
It's hard to say, man. I got a couple examples of getting hit really hard and not feeling it. Was John Alessio. We were tit for tat, blocking punches here and there, parrying punches, slipping, and he threw a right hand and I covered, and it came through, hit me in the temple. And I remember leaning against the fence and then putting my foot down and standing up. The fight was over, and I looked at the referee and I was like, don't laugh at me. I looked at the referee, who was a buddy of mine, and I was like, are you fouling him? Are you giving him a foul? And he goes, what? And he goes, shh. He goes, watch the Jumbotron. And when I got hit with the right hand, I hit the fence. He hit me 22 times straight, and he's looking at the ref to stop him, and he stops the fight, and I put my foot down, and I was like, what? And all I remember was the one punch.
Oh, my gosh.
And I was like, I was about to pull guard. No, but I literally don't remember the 21 punches after the first punch, and I never fell. I just stayed there eating him like that, and then put my foot down, and I was like, what? I'm fine.
Can you find that on YouTube anywhere?
I'm sure you can. It's a King of the Cage fight, so it's on. Yeah, I'd imagine it is. I'd imagine it is. The other time was fighting in Hawaii.
Yeah.
And I was fighting a guy named John Moreno, and Mark Moreno. And I knew all the Hawaiians hit hard, and I knew all the Hawaiians had good chins. So my goal was to never stand with the guys in Hawaii. And I fought this guy. I knew he hit hard. I shot in for a double leg, lifted him off his feet, and on the way down, he hit me with an uppercut. And I remember that. I finished a takedown, circled around, armbarred him, won the fight. I went back. I was married at the time. Went back, called my ex-wife, and I was like, hey, I won the fight. And she goes, you called me 30 minutes ago and told me that. And I was like, no, I just won right now. She's like, no, you called me a half hour ago and told me already. Like, what are you talking about? And I was like, I literally just walked from the cage. She's like, no, you called me a half hour ago. So she goes, go see a doctor. So I went to the doctor, the medical guy, and I was like, hey, I got this. Like, I won, but I can't remember this. And he checked my eyes. Everything was 100%. And he goes, you're good. I was like, okay, thanks. And I left. But I cornered Jeff Munson after that and walked him into a Kimura win and everything. And don't remember any of it. I don't remember anything from the time I got hit till the time I was on the telephone. And Kamaru Usman just talked about this on Joe Rogan's podcast. He said that he remembers getting ready to set something up.
Yep.
And then waking up in the ambulance.
In the ambulance. I was listening to that podcast.
And like, you didn't wake up till the ambulance because come to, right? Like,
yeah.
He functioned.
Yeah.
He got up, he talked to people, he walked out, and you could tell he was messed up as he was walking out. But he didn't start remembering anything until he was in the ambulance.
It's like his brain didn't hit record until the ambulance.
So I didn't have a technical concussion where I was nauseous, where my eyes were dilated, where any of that. I just had a memory lapse. And that's happened 4 times in my 28 years of training. Once it was for the 10 seconds with John Alessio. That 30 minutes, there was a time training in Mark Huas's garage where that happened for about 30 minutes.
That was, you talked about that on Lights Out podcast.
Yeah, on the
I
Lights
think.
Out podcast. And then another time, actually, when I first moved to Texas, my friend Richard, who I was giving privates to every day, we spar all the time, and he was 6'4", and I beat him up, and then he hit me one time, and next thing I know, we're back at the hotel. I was like, how'd we get here? Didn't remember it.
Wow. Question number 3 from John. Who do you think the best pound-for-pound fighter today is? Same question for grappler.
Let's go to grappler first.
Yeah.
Gordon Ryan. I can't. You can't deny that guy. However, he just had a match with Felipe Pena. I think they went 45 minutes, and he got a couple sweeps. Never passed his guard. A couple years ago at ADCC, went with Buchecha. Never passed his guard. Never got his guard pass. He did sweep him at the very beginning, before there were points, and then there were no points scored. I think he's great. I think all those guys at the top are very, very close. I think there are a lot of very, very close guys at the top of the jiu-jitsu world. When you get to the guys lighter than them, there's even more, that are all so close and so great. And so, I guess you have to say Gordon, but I would like to see him, as much as he talks, I would like to see him submitting those guys, not in an hour and a half when you've now shown that your conditioning is like Nick and Nate Diaz. Like, if it takes you all the way till the guy's exhausted before you can submit him, then, you have better conditioning than them. I would like to see you do it in a 10-minute match, a 15-minute match, so.
Pound for pound fighter.
I still think Usman's better than Leon.
Yep.
I think that Leon I think he's great. I think he didn't quit, and I think he, landed whatever. You can't land a one strike at the 1 minute mark of the 5th round and say you're better. He's great, but I just think Kamaru Usman's better. I think he wins the decision on the rematch. I think Khabib's retired, GSP's retired. It's a very tough call. I think that Alexander Volkanovski is a stud.
He's number 1 on UFC's pound for pound. You got him, Adesanya, Oliveira, Usman, and then you've got Ngannou, Edwards, so then it kind of goes down from there.
Who was 2 and 3?
Adesanya and Oliveira.
Yeah, I would pick Oliveira over Adesanya only because he's so skilled everywhere. He's so good on the feet. He's so good on the ground.
Yeah.
I know that if you're just going by wins, that Adesanya is better. He's got a better record. He's done better. But pound for pound best fighter, I think that, if you put Oliveira and Adesanya together at the same size, I think Oliveira's a better fighter.
Where do you put Gegard Mousasi in there?
Man. Now, I
know he just lost.
Yeah,
but
now I think he's probably not in the top 10. I don't know. It's hard to say. 5 years ago and more, I think he's always been a top guy, always a top 6, 7 guy.
It's really hard to do this because the fight game changes. There's a lot of evolution that happens in the sport, like every sport. You can have the Michael Jordan versus LeBron debate. There's all kinds of debates.
Jordan all day.
That's the right answer, by the way. If you had, I know your favorite fighter is GSP. Mm-hmm. If you had to pick, going kind of spanning the breadth of UFC, would you put him as pound for pound best?
Of all time?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Not close?
No, I don't think it's close.
Okay.
I think the competition that he faced, I think he came in early. Not only here's why. Who did Adesanya beat to get the belt? Is there a way to look that up?
Yeah, I can look it up.
GSP came in against a guy who's a 9-time champion, Matt Hughes. He lost to him. He came back and beat him handily, handed him his ass. Rematch, beat him again. Then only had one other loss. It was to Matt Serra, kind of like what happened the other night. Got caught slipping, got knocked out, came back, dominated him and beat him. And then went on the craziest win streak ever. But he took out the guy who was the GSP before him. He
Okay.
took out the Adesanya. He took out, the guy who was on the terror for years that no one wanted to fight, that was dominating everyone. And so I think that, and then he retired, took 4 years off, I think.
Yeah.
Came back, moved up to middleweight, and beat the champion, Michael Bisping, and submitted him, finished him, dropped him, and then finished him. I think if he moved down to 55 and fought Khabib, I think he would have beat Khabib as well.
I'm looking. So I pulled
Hard
up.
to tell when he got the belt.
Yeah, it is, but I'm think we might be able. So he beat Anderson Silva in 2019. That was an old Anderson Silva that
Very.
didn't much. Then he beat Calvin Gastelum.
Gastelum.
And then
didn't have the
Whitaker was after that. I'm wondering if it was Whitaker.
Whitaker had the belt, yeah.
And then he went on a run of Yoel Romero, Paulo Costa, Vittori, Whitaker again, and Cannonier. Then we had that loss on there to Blachowicz in between.
But go back to beating Whitaker. Can you click on Whitaker?
Yeah.
Who had he fought before that?
And he did KO him. Mark Goddard was the
was
ref
there.
for that one.
I was there.
Oh,
It was
that's
the one in
right. That was
Australia.
the one in Australia. So let me pull up Whitaker here. What did you want to
He
know?
wasn't on any sort of streak that was crazy like Adesanya's is right now, like Matt Hughes was. Like he didn't.
No,
come-
he was on a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 win streak before he lost
Who
it.
did he? Who can you tell me who he beat? just so I know
Romero
when he got the
twice. I don't know who he got the belt from.
belt? Yoel twice. And then who?
Souza before that, Brunson,
Okay.
Rafael Nadal, Uriah Hall, Brad Tavares, Clint Hester, and Mike Rhodes.
Right.
So those
so
are
he
early
didn't
on.
get the belt until Yoel, or who was before Yoel?
Ronald Souza.
Jacare. Yeah, he didn't get the belt
Okay,
until one of
Jacare.
those
Okay.
two fights. So he wasn't
Ronaldo.
on a crazy titled run. You know what
Okay,
I mean?
okay.
He had good. He had a
Had a
he was
good
on
run.
Streak, but Matt Hughes, those guys had been on major title runs, and just like Adesanya is now. So I think it's a big. I just feel like who did Khabib get the 55 belt from? I
have to go
forget,
back
but
and
even
pull that
he
up.
didn't have that many defenses.
Yeah,
few.
and that's the knock on Khabib is his title defense wasn't as strong as.
But I know that he was suppressed. He did not get the belt when he should have. He did not get the fights when he should have. He was winning and winning and winning, and I think they made it difficult for him to get the title shot. Or he'd have been the champ a little longer.
Yeah, well, 29-0, isn't that what?
Yeah.
And they were actually talking. I was listening to Rogan and Usman this morning, actually, before I came in as well. And they were trying to say, would Khabib ever come out of retirement?
Yeah, I said he wouldn't even come back for a grappling match.
Yeah. Well, and it sounded like I'm not even see if I can pull it up here, but it sounds like he's gigantic right now.
Yeah, he is. He said he weighed in at heavyweight, right? Which is over 206. That's
Yeah.
what Patty is right now, too.
Yeah. What's up with Patty?
206.6. I don't know.
Is that dude just eating? Is he?
He's definitely eating.
Yeah, he's definitely eating. The last question for you then, and I like this one. I think it's a great question to end on in this one. What are you most proud of in your career?
That's a tough call. Fighting anybody. I was the guy who would fight anybody on short notice, on long notice. I would, I never turned down fights with guys. Could have probably been to my detriment, but I'd fight anybody, and everybody knew that. My also great accomplishment is I've got 19 submission wins, 18 first round submission wins. As a professional MMA fighter, that's a heck of a thing to accomplish. Fighting the way I did is the same reason I have, the amount of losses I have, because I went out and went after it.
Yep.
And, I won 21 fights, and I had one decision win, one knockout win, and 19 submissions. So that's probably that. Fighting for the UFC belt, fighting in Pride. I did a lot of things. I was the first person to fight for the UFC 170 belt. I was the first fight at 170 in the UFC. I was the first lightweight fight in Pride. I was the first win in Pride at lightweight. I I won the Jiu-Jitsu World Championships 3 times. You
Yep.
know, I was able to do a lot of things. I lost a lot of matches in my fights. I think 12 matches, 12 fights. But again, training the way I was able to train with my guys and do whatever, I accomplished enough to where I am now able to provide everything I am for my family with my teaching background and gyms and stuff.
I mean, obviously, you got to put fighting Pat 3 times.
Yeah.
And just earning 3 fights. And you said in one of the podcasts you mentioned that your first fight with Pat was your 6th professional fight. Is that right? 5th.
Yeah, 5th, 6th, and 8th. I think I was 4-0, and then I fought Pat, went to a draw, 5-0-1, and then we fought again 2 months later.
Yep.
And lost a split decision to him, and then fought 2 months later again. But I fought once. We fought twice that night. I fought somebody else first to get between us.
Okay.
And won that fight. So I think I fought him. I was 5-1-1, and fought him again. You know, so I was a blue belt in jiu-jitsu. I didn't have any other background. I didn't wrestle. I was just a fighter, and so he was much better than me. I was just tough, man, and he knew it. And will tell you now that I was some of his toughest fights.
So yeah, you went 4 wins, a draw, so now you're 4-0-1. Then you lost to him, so now you're 4-1-1. You beat Courtney Turner, so now you're 5-1-1, and then you lost to Pat again, so now you're 5-2-1.
Yeah.
And then you were going basically 2-1 for about your next, 12, 13 matches. You'd go 2-1.
I had a
3-1.
3-fight win streak in there.
Yep.
And then
2 right there, loss, 3 loss, 2 loss. You had a lot of just that's like a baseball record right there.
I stayed busy, man.
Yeah.
I was constantly fighting.
I don't know if I don't know if you've ever done this, but just in looking it up right here, when I went to SureDog, I type in Brennan. 21-14-1 is what SureDog shows you as. But I think maybe one of the coolest things, we can probably end on this, is that when I type in Brennan, you're not the first
Lucas
Brennan that
comes
comes up first. Lucas comes up first.
I mean, honestly, that's when you ask what's my biggest accomplishment,
Yeah.
my biggest accomplishment is them
Yeah.
being able to now do what they do because of what I did.
So cool.
And that is, I laid the groundwork basically to have that, and that's probably the coolest thing for me,
For sure.
Of course, they earn everything they get, but he wouldn't have walked in and started in Bellator. He wouldn't have, whatever. So I think a lot of this stuff has been pretty awesome because of what I was able to do as a fighter first.
In basketball, you hear a lot of, especially in street ball, you hear people say the ball don't lie. It either goes in or it doesn't.
Right.
The ball doesn't lie.
Right.
And I feel like in mixed martial arts, you may get some help along the way, but Connor is a great example of this. At some point, you either win your fights or you don't.
Right.
And no one else can fight those battles for you. Dad can't come in and help you. Your coach can't come in and help you. So if anybody is saying, yeah, Chris wouldn't, or Luke wouldn't be where he was without you, I think there's a part of that that's true, because you've given him a lot of knowledge. But when that bell rings, literally, it's Luke, and he's got to perform or he doesn't.
7-0.
And he's performed 7 times.
3 as an amateur, so 10 fights
So
streak.
10-0.
Yeah, and that's not because I put him there. That's because he won his fights.
And you can't do anything to help him once that door closes.
He has 5 first-round submissions. He's chasing me. He's tied for 4th right now for most submissions in Bellator history, and we'll see where that ends up.
It's good stuff, man.
Awesome.
It's
Thank
cool.
you, sir. Thanks, guys.
It is all over, just like that.